I was driven to Wikipedia to be reminded the twins Viola and Sebastian separated in a shipwreck. Viola is disguised as Cesario. She falls in love with the Duke, but he is in love with the Countess Olivia, who has fallen in love with Viola, thinking that she's a man. And hilarity ensues. What did you want to do with that?
Well, for me, it was, these sort of gender-bending comedies from Shakespeare's day it doesn't quite hold water as much now, and gender is more fluid, and just because a woman is dressed like a man doesn't mean she can't love a man. So to me, I was just more interested in Viola's personal journey, less to do with the binary of male and female, but just how, when you walk a mile in someone else's shoes, how that can change how you see yourself and how you feel about yourself. And to me, at the core of her journey, she thought her brother had died, she was in a strange new land, and the only thing she could think to do to survive was to kind of basically pretend to be her brother, because her brother was her rock and her strength. And then only in pretending to be her brother, throughout the hilarity that ensues in the land of Illyria, she can kind of learn who Viola is. So I think I just try to focus on her journey of self-discovery and the theme of empathy that I'm talking about, of walking a mile in someone else's shoes.
How many people were in that cast?
It was like 160. It's this amazing initiative that the Public Theater has called Public Works. This large-scale, community-based program that we collaborate with organizations from all over the 5 boroughs. And so the cast that you saw, it's domestic workers, it's deaf folks, recently incarcerated people that we work with, the Children's Aid Society, Military Resilience Project, veterans, all kinds of folks, and then right alongside Broadway actors. And part of the philosophy behind it is the culture belongs to everyone, and it's not just some elite thing only for a few.
Wow, and there you are helming that.
I really learned, my getting to work with Public Works for those 3 years just felt like this education and this eye-opening experience for me of what theater can really do, and how radical it is when you actually create a space that is for everyone, and you don't have to pay $100 to get in the door, and Shakespeare in the Park is free for everyone, and to have,
And I don't think I mentioned that you're 29?
I am 30.
Oh, when did that happen? When did that happen? But still, 30 years old and everything that we've just listed. Look, we want people to have a feeling of what it's like to be in New York with Shaina Taub, working on all the musicals that she's worked on and been in, but also performing at Joe's Pub. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to be there, just a wonderful, very intimate place to hear somebody sing. So over the course of the evening, we're going to hear Shaina perform. She'll take your questions later and talk about some of her projects. But how about some music now? A writer in the Huffington Post said he had seen the future of the American songbook, and it is Shaina Taub. So no pressure. What can we hear?
Okay, always. All right, so this is a song I wrote shortly after the inauguration in 2017. It's called Where Are the Grown-Ups? Bully has taken the playground. The smallest are trembling in fear. Everyone's yelling and shoving, and I'm standing here. I'm waiting for them to come running. Aren't they supposed to arrive? Where are the grown-ups to save the day? Where are the grown-ups to make it okay? Somebody's gotta come clean this mess off the floor. Where are the grown-ups we've been waiting for? Where are the grown-ups? The bully is building a fortress for only his friends at the top. He's slamming the rest into lockers. Please make him stop. I'm looking around for an answer. I thought they'd be here by now. Where are the grown-ups to save the day? Where are the grown-ups to show us the way? Somebody's gotta come clean this mess off the floor. Where are the grown-ups we've been waiting for? Where are the grown-ups? She's scared of the man on TV. Her little eyes widen with worry. She turns to me. She's looking around for an answer, and now I have mine. We are the grown-ups to save the day. We are the grown-ups to make it okay. We're not gonna take this bully shit anymore. We are the grown-ups we've been waiting for. My God, we are the grown-ups. We are the grown-ups. So what are we waiting for? Thank you.
I, of course, am not commenting. By the way, the same writer I mentioned said he'd be surprised if you hadn't heard of Jacques Brel.
Oh,
You
yeah.
had that kind of influence there.
Oh,
So
Jacques
who are you, Shaina Taub? We want to meet you.
What?
This isn't the kind of thing where you pay me. We understand you grew up in Vermont.
Uh-huh.
Played Anne. Oh, by the way, your mom's here.
My mom is here.
Mom's here somewhere.
Woo!
Hi, Mom.
Moms.
Mom obviously made some great choices.
She did.
Played Annie in a local production.
I did, yeah. I mean, the community theater scene is really rich in Vermont. I was really lucky that I had a local community theater where I got to perform, a theater in Burlington as well, a great dance studio in Montpelier. So
Spend
the arts are alive and well in Vermont.
Spend time memorizing cast albums. Mm-hmm. Which ones?
I mean, Rent was huge. I saw a friend at camp gave me disc 2 of Rent, like when I was 10, and for a while I thought disc 2 was all there was. Like I thought Seasons of Love was the opening number of Rent, which is a solid opening number. And like the next summer, the friend gave me disc 1, and I was like, what? There's more?
That's a whole other story here.
Yeah, it was like a prequel.
It's kind of funny because we were talking earlier, and we're very different in age. And you know, you grew up memorizing Rent, and I grew up memorizing Oliver and West Side Story. Oh, you did those too?
I mean, both of those for sure. Oliver was a big after-school movie watch for me and my sister. Yeah.
There you go. It seems like you knew so early on what you wanted. Graduated high school at 16, and off you go to NYU. Mm-hmm. What did you know about yourself?
I think I knew I wanted to make sound before I really knew what I had to say, you know, and I'm still figuring that out. But I just recognized something. You know, I had my grandparents on my mom's side used to take the grandkids to see a Broadway show once a year, and I saw Beauty and the Beast was the first show I saw, and I just remember watching them on stage. It's one of those things I just always felt the connection, and in a way that I've never really doubted. I don't ever feel like I really chose, and I haven't really questioned. Yeah.
Well, but it's not just being Annie. It's being the person who tells Annie where to what to sing.
That was the discovery, because for me, I always was performing, and as a teenager, and I went to college as a drama performing major, and I wanted to be on stage, and I just thought of musicals, you know, like Rent, that I got the cast on. Musicals were these fully formed things that arrived from the North Pole, like, to us. And I didn't think about process. It didn't occur to me like people in rooms, much like this one, like made a piece of art. And it was only when I got to college and I encountered that happening that it occurred to me I could have a hand in that. And as soon as I started to, I realized it was in me, and, you know, I'd been scribbling in journals. I just hadn't really thought of it as a path. You know, there weren't a ton of women doing it either. And it's just like now, and then as soon as I came to New York and saw some mentors kind of model that for me, I realized that was a part of what I wanted to do.
Well, you have 2 albums now. I want to say the San Francisco Chronicle described your voice as a young Judy Garland meets a grown-up Lisa Simpson. I think that's a good, is that good? I think it's...
Yeah, I mean, Lisa Simpson's early work, but yeah.
In the early days. So let's hear a little bit more, because I want to also hear, after we hear from you, when you decided to take that voice and also apply it to social issues. Mm-hmm. You take on so many in your songs. You, I think, listed Mitch McConnell as a co-writer on the song She Persisted, mm-hmm. which is about Elizabeth Warren. And remember when he tried to get her to stop talking?
Yeah.
You've written about refugees. We're going to hear about that, about gun violence. And in fact, we have a little bit of a tape. I hope that it's there. Do you have that there to play back? Let me introduce it. This is the song When, and it also gives us an idea of what you sound like when you have many of the people that sing with you. You have a whole community that sings with you. It begins, another child, another bullet, another unfathomable day, another trigger, another reason to pull it, another unthinkable cliche, and then goes on to when will we? Let's listen.
What shall I sing? Another lamentation. What shall I sing? Another blues inside my room. What shall I sing? An anthem in the stream, on repeat till my voice runs out. Shall I stare or shall I shout? Oh, when, if not now, then when? Oh, when, if not now, then when? Oh, me, oh, you, if not us, then who? We'll try again. If not now, then when? Oh,
Ooh, I love it. Google it. Google it. It's just great. By the way, was that at Lincoln Center?
Yeah, it's in their American Songbook series, concert series. Yeah.
When did that happen, that you decided it's not just about Beauty and the Beast and Annie, it's about using this voice for other things?
Yeah, I mean, I was always into it. I remember, like, back in Vermont, holding an anti-war, like, sing-in, be-in event at our local movie theater. And I think...
And you were 5.
I was 5. No, I think, no, that was in high school. You know, I mean, I think it was always a part of what I was interested in, and especially when I got to New York, talking about that mentor and the women I saw kind of model for me what I wanted to do. I met this teacher, Elizabeth Swados, and I took her class in social justice, and just, you know, working for equality has always been such a part of what she did, and that art has always been a vehicle for that, you know. And I always think of, like, the Nina Simone quote, how can you be an artist and not reflect the times? Like, these are the tools I have, so this is what I can use to try and...
Liz Swados, the writer.
Yes, Elizabeth Swados. She was
passed.
an amazing composer, writer, director, teacher. She wrote and directed and choreographed Runaways on Broadway at age 27. Was nominated for Tonys, and she was my teacher and mentor in college. Yeah.
Wow, how wonderful for us. You know.
Yes, I was very lucky.
You passed by her. Well, I know we want to hear another song that reflects this. Why don't you tell us about it? Because I think this one came from a Nicholas Kristof column.
Oh yeah, so Nicholas Kristof in the New York Times has these columns. He has one column that really stuck with me called Anne Frank is a Little Syrian Girl, just kind of comparing the Anne Frank story and then the story of Jews being turned away by other countries when fleeing the Nazis, and how that same thing is happening now in the Middle East. And you know, he had another column about how the Statue of Liberty was crying in shame. And I always knew I kind of wanted to take the poem on the base of the Statue of Liberty and do something with it. And I kind of had this narrative about it with these 3 chapters of, like, one being Jesus and one being Anne. Well, I won't give it away because I'll play it. But I had this idea and it was floating around. And then around when the weekend after the inauguration, when it was the airport protests around the first illegal travel ban, I was like, this is the time to write it. And it was inspired too, I mean, from Nick Kristof's columns, but then also just that poem, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. I realized I didn't know much about the genesis of that poem or the writer, and I looked it up, and it was by a young Jewish poet named Emma Lazarus. And I always thought, like, the Huddled Masses poem was this big, like, lofty assignment. It was like, you are going to write the Statue of Liberty poem. She was like, yes, I am. And that wasn't it. So basically, it was in order to raise money to build, as I understand it, like, in order to raise money for the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, they, like, commissioned local, not even commissioned, they, like, had local artists create pieces of art or poetry or whatever inspired by the notion of the statue that they would then auction off to raise money to build the pedestal. So Emma Lazarus wrote Huddled Masses as, like, a Kickstarter reward for the pedestal. And she was like, burp, burp, give me your tired, your poor. And
had you heard the song? Because there's the beautiful song.
Oh, there's an Irving Berlin song, right? I mean, it's been set.
Give me your tired, your poor.
Yeah.
Your huddled mass.
I mean, it's been set. The text has been set by many people. I mean, I used, as you'll see, like, I used her text for my chorus, and then the verses I wrote myself. But anyway, I was just so moved to realize that like she tragically died in her late 30s, and she was an artist and an advocate for refugees at the time, and so she never lived to know that her poem would then be chosen ultimately to be put on the plaque and then go on to inspire generations and become this mantra of American liberty and still be on protest signs at an airport in 2017.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Let's hear Huddled Masses.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like our private concert here. It's wonderful.
Intimate. It's not a real piano. It sounds really good, I promise. But it's not working though.
Oh, do we need to turn it on?
Yeah. Do I need to turn it on?
What do we do?
Help.
Is it an electric piano?
I know it's a keyboard and a shell. It's an illusion.
Okay, this is my moment. So now
Yes,
I
yeah.
will perform.
I'm so sorry.
Not.
Ooh,
There.
awesome. Yes, we have sound.
You spared me.
Thanks, Adam. All right. Okay.
There once was a little boy who dreamed of preaching the gospel truth. He lived in a country with an evil king who was killing all the youth. His family fled the country in search of freedom's flame. He was raised a refugee. Jesus was his name. Give me your time, your poor, your huddled masses on your teeming shore, yearning to breathe free. Send them all to me. Give me your time, your poor, your huddled masses on your teeming shore. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Remember what I stand here for. There once was a little girl who dreamed of being a writer. She lived in a country with an evil king who burned people who prayed like her. Her family tried to flee it to keep their kid alive, and was raised a refugee, just her diary survived. Give me your time, your poor, your huddled masses on your teeming shore, yearning to breathe free. Send them all to me. Give me your time, your poor, your huddled masses on your teeming shore. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Remember what I stand here for. There once was a young man who dreamed of earning his degree. He lived in a country with an evil king who bombed his family. He flew to reach our border to start his life anew. He's detained today at JFK. We did not let him through. Oh, let him come through. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses on your teeming shore, yearning to breathe free. Send them all to me. Welcome all Muslims, Christians, Jews, and more. Every child fleeing hate and war. shut the golden door, and I'll forever lift my lamp. I shut the golden door. Remember what I stand here for.
That was beautiful. It's beautiful. Is that on one of your albums?
Sorry?
Is that on one of your albums?
It is. It's on an album I released last year called Die Happy.
Okay, I happy. Look, there's so much to your resume. You've been in many musicals and stage performances. You were in Old Hats with the wonderful clowns David Shainer and Bill Irwin.
Yes.
You were in one of the original Comets. Can you say the title?
Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812.
Yeah. You were in that. You wrote the opening song for the Tonys last year for Sarah Bareilles and Josh Groban.
Yes, we co-wrote it together, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is Elton John?
He's amazing. He is, I just am so full of respect for him. He's so hardworking, he's disciplined, he is kind and generous, and he and his bandmates have been working together for 50 years. I'm just so moved. I really just to get to work with a living legend up close. It's just been everything I could have imagined and more, and he just treats me like an equal and like respects my contribution, and the collaboration feels so rich, and it's unbelievable. It's really, but I just could not respect him more. I think he's just an artist of the highest caliber.
That's so good to hear. I didn't want to hear that, well, you know, working with Elton John, he's really
No, he's
drag.
So funny. He's like just cracking jokes. He loves what he does. And he's so passionate about it. You know, he could have retired so long ago, but and speaking of social justice, I mean, the Elton John AIDS Foundation over the last 25 years has just raised millions of dollars and brought so much awareness to AIDS. So he really inspires me as someone who not only is a genius, but uses his platform to shine a spotlight on causes he cares about.
Well, and again, you're writing the music. You're doing the lyrics.
Oh, I'm writing the lyrics.
Yeah,
so
he's
Elton
doing
has
music.
never worked with. I'm sorry, he never writes lyrics. He always like Bernie Taupin. He wrote with for.
You're
50
like
years,
Bernie. You're going to be Bernie on The Devil Wears Prada, which is the Broadway musical version. You're going to be Bernie Taupin. So were you any trepidation? Were you nervous?
Yeah, I was terrified. I mean, it's great. It just feels fake. I thought it was like a large-scale ruse. Like I was just going to show up at the studio and it was like, I don't know. But yeah, I was nervous. Yeah. I'm still, but it's a challenge. I just feel I'm trying to just rise to the challenge and learn from doing it. And usually I write music and lyrics, so just to kind of sit with lyrics and really craft them and hone them and try and just make the best ingredients to hand him, and then he sets. So, and I'm just kind of like learning as I go, and yeah.
And what about The Devil Wears Prada? I mean, you'd seen the movie. I mean, how did you feel?
Yeah, I was obsessed with it. I knew every word. I would watch it like monthly. It's sort of insane. It's such a great movie. I love the movie just on a fun level, but also I love that screenplay. I just think the characters, the female characters are so complex and interesting and nuanced and real, and the fact that it's a story where the main relationship is between two women, and it's about power and ambition and how that is related to morality and between generations. It's just something I've always loved. And as soon as I heard there was an adaptation, I tried to get in on it, but they weren't really looking, and then it kind of came around, and
I did it ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Devil Wears Prada is deep. People who write it, it's a deep, deep film.
Yeah.
Just can you give us like a sneak sense of what some of the things you're, like a lyric maybe, or something that you've written to communicate some of that?
Well, it is funny. I mean, there's one song so I had to kind of write two songs to get the gig.
Does everybody know the movie?
Yeah. Go watch it. It's fun.
It's like there's an older woman who's being pushed out, and then the young woman who's trying. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I had to, write some songs sort of as to audition and get the job. And one of the songs I wrote was for the Andy character, the Anne Hathaway character, and the hook is "Girl for the Job." And I'm excited about it. And now we've written the song, but I was like, this is my submission for the job, and the song is called "Girl for the Job." It just was so on the nose. It's just oh my God.
Too much? Too on the nose?
Yeah, but it was the right idea, but it just felt so meta. I was
Well, and you're also I'm so excited about this. In fact, you were at Radcliffe, Harvard, to talk about this other project that you have, which is working on a Broadway musical of your own about suffragettes. And I was wondering, very exciting.
Yeah, I'm glad you're excited.
Consulting with people like Radcliffe scholar Susan Ware, who's just amazing. And I started thinking about this, and people have made some comparisons to you and a certain someone else. And so I was thinking, well, wait, is this going to be Shaina Taub's, Hamilton? Is this going to be Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton face off against Lucy Stone?
Well,
I know and like who's in the room where it happened in Seneca Falls? Is it going to be? But you say.
Well, what's so interesting with the suffrage movement, yes, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton are incredibly interesting and probably deserve a musical, but they're not in mine, is that, the suffrage movement really spanned 3 generations of women. If you're kind of thinking of Seneca Falls as sort of a symbolic beginning, and then the passage of the 19th Amendment wasn't until 1920. So those 2 who we mentioned had died over a decade before it passed. And then, of course, even still, like 1920, sure, the 19th Amendment passed, and in words, it enfranchised all women, but we all know it wasn't decades more until the fight for voting rights still continues in this country and is never over. And women of color were left out of so much of it. And, there's a lot going on in there. But to me, what I'm really excited about is all the complexity that goes into trying to build a movement, and what does a group of women who do, in theory, want the same thing have completely different ideas of how to get there. And so when I was trying to decide, there's so much. So my story really focuses on the kind of final push of the leading up to the 19th Amendment in 1920. So during World War I, my main character is Alice Paul, who was this young radical activist who pioneered she kind of brought direct action and civil disobedience and nonviolent passive resistance to the movement in a way that hadn't happened before, at least in the decades before her. And so I kind of cover the White House protests. They were the first American citizens to picket the White House. They were thrown in jail. They went on a hunger strike in jail. They were force-fed in jail, and just a lot of incredibly traumatic, upsetting stuff that I grew up going through the American school system as a young girl, really hungry for my story to tell, and this history didn't make its way to me until my mid-20s. So
and how did it?
A producer who's a peer of mine sat me down and gave me a book called Jailed for Freedom by a woman named Doris Stevens, who's one of my characters now, and just blew my mind. And she had just latched onto it somehow, and I couldn't believe I didn't know.
But is there a sense of, look, you have been called the next Lin-Manuel Miranda.
By my mom? I'm just kidding.
Just before, in the green room, she said that. So I want to ask you, is that, pressure, burden, blessing? What is that? Is that a compliment? Is that oh, please don't? But when I started thinking about how somebody might frame a musical about the women's movement in this point in time, it is a little bit like, the beginning of the country in a way. It is, different voices being raised, and who was in the room, and who did, say, there are shades of Hamilton there a little bit.
Sure, to me it's we're part of the theme with American history. We're still just asking the same questions we were asking 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. And I think the thing that, like I was saying before, that when I was approaching the subject, I thought, okay, well, I could do, in any piece of drama you need conflict. So there's sort of the obvious conflict of the suffragists versus the forces against them, men in power, people anti-suffragists, who included many women as well, and that. But to me, that felt a little dull, because you all know kind of who was right and who was wrong, and it's you all know the Titanic's gonna sink, we all know the 19th Amendment passed, so how do I find drama within it of things you didn't know? So to me, I'm more interested in what were the conflicts within the movement. So within the suffrage side, what were the factions, as we see in all kinds of social movements. It's not like there's one monolithic organization that all agrees on all the talking points and all the, there's a lot of tensions in there. And in the suffrage movement, at least, it really manifested generationally, as it often does in these movements, of kind of an older generation who were we were around with Susan and Elizabeth, and we like to go state by state, and we kind of have this way of doing things. And then the younger radicals who were no, we're gonna go storm the gates of the White House, federal amendment now. And the way that those two sides, in a way, within the same side, had to work together or not in a way to get change to happen.
Yeah. And you mentioned briefly the other troubled history of the women's movement, which was that, Elizabeth Cady Stanton was a racist.
Oh yeah, they were terrible at including women of color, and really, but to me, the thing is, I'm a dramatist, not a historian. Like, it's not up to me to make a moral judgment on these women. It's up to me to explore their humanity and all of their flaws and ugliness. And as a dramatist, like, those complexities and issues are the lifeblood of, I'm diving right into it. I'm like, all right, well, let's talk about it. Let's have them fail. I feel like sometimes with feminists or well-meaning feminist narratives, it can be like, we were perfect warriors and we were all noble and right and we got the thing, and that's not true. Like, to me, I think like the way to make a more feminist story is to really like show them as humans who messed up and were short-sighted and made calculated decisions that were sometimes maybe in the name of justice but a little more self-interested, and like really show them as people.
I know you're working with someone that you from what I'm hearing, you really loved working with some of the scholars on this, like Susan. But are you also feeling, 9,000 women over your shoulder, kind of, you have to get this right?
Well, yeah, it's like two extremes, and I try and find them. And one, I'm like, oh, well, I have to like do right by them or get it right, but then it's like, and I have to, tell, and then I'm like, who am I to think that? Come on, like this, I hope there's 20 musicals about suffrage. I hope there's 20 movies. I hope there's just endless books. I hope, you know what I mean? Like, far be it from me to write some kind of definitive thing, because even one of the things I struggle with a lot is there's just so much history, I can barely contain it in 2.5 hours. So I hope that a new era is coming where a lot of these women's stories are getting told more and more and more by as many of us as possible.
There's like an anniversary coming. You have to get this done.
Yeah, I know, I gotta go home.
Bye.
No, I work on it every day. But yeah, the centennial of the 19th Amendment is coming up next summer, and there's a lot of things happening around it. And again, I feel like it'd be like working on a dramatic work that I'm not doing a museum installation that has to be entirely historically accurate. I'm not making a statue that has to be inherently celebratory. I'm making like a piece of drama that can really shine the light. And yeah, it doesn't have to be educational. Like, to me, it just has to be human.
Yeah. And I have complete faith in you. I mean, I'm living online now, Googling your videos. I urge everybody to do it. I mean, it's like complete faith. But having said that, so is it a burden to be called the next Lin-Manuel Miranda?
I feel like I've been nothing by my mom, but I've been nothing but fortunate. I've just had a privileged feast of support in my life. My parents supported me going to college for this field that so many parents don't, and I've
16.
Been at a young age, and I've just had incredible teachers. I mean, and even just the older generation of writers in the theater have been so welcoming and sit down. Janine Tesori has let me like sit with her and just get her feedback, and Lynn Ahrens, and it's just, the theater is such an amazing place because it really cares about the future of the form, and the theater really takes care of its young, and so I just feel like I've had so much support, so many votes of confidence, that now it's just on me to buckle down and do the work and kind of not worry about, we were talking about that I can't control what happens with any of it or any degree of success or failure. I can just kind of figure out what I want to say and try and say it as rigorously and thought through as possible, and and try and also just look back to and support the next round. And I really look forward to a time where I could kind of return all of the support that's been given to me.
You're just 30.
I'm just 30.
Have your moment. By the way, that what we're feeling is the tea, and every now and then the train.
I was
and
like,
every now and then I
spilling
look
the
to look up. When you were singing before, there was one stopped at the light at St. Paul, and everybody was at the window like this, like, what's that? And I would yell, it's Shaina Taub. Let's hear one more song from you. I know people want to ask questions.
Oh yeah,
what would
totally.
we have 2 to go, so one.
I think this is this accordion's last run. This is Duct Tape.
When did that start? When did you?
I learned to play accordion for the Comet, for Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet, for that show. And then it's a great way to learn an instrument, to just have to play it 8 times a week, like right when you learn it. So yeah, and then I got my own, which is this one, which is now dying, and it's just kind of shown up in every project since. And it's fun for me as a pianist because you were so. Is it sedentary? Am I saying that word right? It's one of those words I've only seen in print.
Sit there.
Did I do it? Okay. Yeah, so now I can like stand. It's so nice. So.
And this breathes.
Huh?
It breathes.
No, it's what I would say was like, recording is the combination of piano and voice, because you've got the keys, but then it's like, but anyway, okay. So this is a song off my first album. I think I'll just play it. The visitors come knocking at my door, paying me
shows up early while the worry paces up and down the hall. Fear comes around once a week, always trying to sell me something, and envy brings me flowers from the neighbor's lawn. The visitors come knocking at my door, I'm the mat they step upon. The visitors come knocking at my door, some for dinner, some for tea. Loneliness can overstay its welcome, but I could use the company. Grief sleeps at my feet, next to doubt. Don't have the heart to kick them out, and pity throws me parties now and then. The visitors come knocking at my door, here they come again. Lord knows they've made my place a mess, but I love them anyway, I guess. Why do the hardest feelings make the easiest guess? Not like trust, what a flake, cancels every plan we make. And courage rings the bell, then he runs away. And hope means well, but I prefer her brother dread. And joy can be swell, but misery's better in bed. And forgiveness is not invited anymore, but she sits on my stoop on the loop, saying, I know you're in there, let me in. You've gotta come outside sometime. I know you're in there, let me in. You got to come outside sometime. I know you're in there, let me in. You've got to come outside sometime. You know the hardest feelings wanna be your guest. So when the visitors come knocking at your door, be careful who you host. The ones who hurt the worst are the ones you love the most.
Shaina Taub. Well, I'm mindful of the time. I want to thank everybody for coming to City Space, because we just really loving having this, place to have community and have all sorts of people that we'd never get a chance to talk to like this. But we also want to give you a chance to ask any questions. I know there's a microphone that Amy has somewhere. Yep. Does anybody just chime right in? Anybody have any questions?
Kevin.
Oh, we have to pass it along. This is how much we trust you. We're passing a microphone around the room.
I'm really excited about your Alice Paul play, and I'm wondering if you have a sense of when we'll be able to see that.
Yeah, hopefully next year, because that will be kind of around the centennial of the 19th Amendment and another election, and so 2020 is the hope and plan.
Are you going to be in it?
Yes.
Ooh, can we ask who you're going to play?
Yeah.
Who are you going to play?
Alice Powell. Yeah.
Wow, how cool is that? That you get to be enamored of a character in history, and then you can create her whole world and then be her.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh
no, I just connect to her. It's like, I just feel, yeah.
Why do you connect to her?
I mean, she just wants this thing so badly, and she just buries, just single-minded, relentless, to her own detriment of her own health and everything. It's just this sort of that thing we were talking about earlier of like, well, when did you know you wanted this? And the thing that I'm trying to figure out with Alice of like, I don't know, like when, if she had this moment where she was like, suffrage, or like was radical, like I think she was sort of like sprung like Athena fully formed from the bread. Like she just kind of had this thing, and I don't know, I just connect to her, and I think, and part of I guess the struggle is negative, but I don't know, just the journey with figuring her out is she didn't really leave behind a trail, like she didn't leave behind journals or personal things, because I think her whole thing, I think she was gaining that, because she's like, if someone goes looking for me, I just want them to know about the movement, and like, who cares about me? Like, here's the work, and I can be a lot like that. And so for me, it's been fun to try and find, like, well, what was she like just late at night in her room? Like, what was she like talking to her best friend, like having a fight, you know? And so I've just, in trying to humanize her, I feel like I've just, you know, you only know what you are yourself, so I just, you know, kind of brought myself to her.
Now you're channeling. We can't wait to meet her. Can't wait to meet her. Other questions? Yep.
here.
One here and one there. You have a
But I
microphone?
have the
Oh,
mic.
excellent. Excellent. So you're first.
Hi, Shaina. I want to give you a shout out from Maine, where I spent a lot of time as a theater critic myself and reviewed a lot of community theater. And I know how special it is, and I know that it launches not only the careers of people like you, but the expressiveness and creativity of regular, everyday people
Yeah.
who don't go on to have distinguished careers. So I really appreciate that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
My question for you, however, is about listening and what you listen to and listen for, what you interlope on, how you write your music. So I guess it's really a question about process. And if you could give us a window in on that. And the second part is, how did growing up in a place like Vermont allow you the space and the time to do that? Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, with listening, I do a lot of listening when I'm writing, especially when I'm trying to write for theater, because I think, okay, well, there's like a problem that I need to solve in the story or the character. Chances are another musical has had the same problem. Like, how have they handled this? And so, like, recently I was working on something for Devil Wears Prada, was sort of about like how in your childhood fashion changed someone's life. And so I was like, well, what are songs and musicals that are about like how art or something moved you as a kid and it affected everything that happened since then. So I was listening to like At the Ballet from A Chorus Line, or Disneyland from Smile, Larger Than Life from My Favorite Year. You know, like what are the songs that have done that? And so for me, it's like, I just want to feel that not alone, you know, and like hear like, well, okay, well, other writers have done this. Well, how can I kind of like read that lyric on the page? What does it look like on the page? How does it sound? Like how can I kind of learn from that to go forward? So that's one thing in my process. And then Vermont, I mean, for me, yeah, it was doing community theater. It was just like getting to know these shows through doing them in the communities and getting to kind of like reenact these stories that so many communities do. You know, I was talking to a director friend the other night, like if you could just have a light up map of all the places or schools and communities that did The Sound of Music last year, and just like how it's just these stories that connect to all of us more than we realize, and why I specifically want to do theater. I mean, I want to do like film and TV and all the rest, but like specifically theater, because there are these, we all put them on like pageants together year after year, you know.
I don't suppose we can hear maybe just the first line, "The sun will come out." Can we hear?
Oh my God, the sun will come out tomorrow.
I bet you were great. I bet you
you.
were great. Okay.
So, thanks so much for this. This is just a spectacular evening.
Oh, good.
I wanted to sort of follow up on the process question. I was struck when you were talking about your own development, how you got to college and you discovered there were all these other things that actually go, you know,
Yeah.
the theater doesn't just happen sort of, you know, it's
Yeah.
just there. So I've always sort of wondered what the machinery of making a musical is. And,
Yeah.
and, you know, when you start as a writer and you have to sort of, you know, begin with a page and end up with this extraordinary apparatus and all the effects and the stagehands doing this and so forth and so on. Anything you can say about the sort of the process starting with a blank page and ending up with your suffragette movement?
Yeah, I mean, it's no project is created the same, and there's so many different ways of doing things. And, you know, like up until Suffrage, like most things I worked on, say one of the Shakespeare adaptations, there was such it's like, okay, we'll take the 3-hour Shakespeare play, cut it down and make it work as a 90-minute musical for a cast of 200. So sort of this like assignment on the table. But you know, with something like Suffrage, it's like something that was the first historical project I'd ever done. So I thought I just want to spend a year researching only. So I'm at a place where I feel like I know enough of the facts and the figures that I don't need to consult a book every time I'm trying to come up with a line. So I just started really for research for a long time before I wrote anything, and then I did almost a year of kind of just outlining and trying to figure out what my way into the story was before I even wrote a word or a note on that one. It was a long time. But there's also, it's all collaborative. Like when I'm writing songs for my albums, I mostly kind of write them alone, and then I bring them to my band and we play them in concert. But in theater, I will send my first drafts to my director and get their feedback, and then I'll always be preparing for a reading coming up. And it's why musicals take years and years. It's just there's so many moving parts. And I've been lucky to be able to do them in the context of support, whether with commissions or producers or institutions. And for a lot of musicals, it can be also in addition to the creative end of it, having to kind of hustle your wares around town and like kind of get some support and some money and funding, and that's a whole another piece of it. So there's a lot, yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's hard too, because I'm imagining, okay, there's going to be the scene where the suffragettes have their placards and they're at the White House or whatever, and how you have to, yes, listen to all of the musical history, all the great, oh my gosh, I just adore it too, but then also not do that.
Yeah.
Not be like, oh, but that's starting to feel like Oklahoma when they did,
Well, it's something, I remember like in acting school, it was kind of like do all the work and write your intentions and write all the backstory and blah, 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 and then like let it go. And then like show up and be present in the moment and trust that that's all in there. So I try and follow the same thing. I do all the listening and the writing and the research and like all very like tons of that. And then, I don't always practice what I preach, but when I'm really trying to do it, and then I'm like, okay, well, forget all that, like just what then do you have to say, and like then trust that it's all in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have a couple more.
Hi there.
Hey.
My name is Zach. I'm a huge fan of yours.
Oh, hi, Zach.
I have a quick question. How has the experience been from like writing your own material versus acting in it, and how has that been different? Also, like actors who are part of your works, how has that been?
Yeah, for so long I was only performing in other people's work, and I do love that too. And to perform in a piece like Comet, or I was in the opera run of Hadestown, like when it's this piece I really love, it's an incredible experience to just kind of learn from that writer's work and to bring it to life. But I have to say, like getting to perform your own material, it sort of scratches this itch that I didn't even realize I had. And there's something that's just so empowering about making something and then getting to be a part of it. But actually, I think the thing that has been most surprising to me and that I've loved more than any of it is hearing other people perform it, that I'm not a part of it at all. Like I've gotten to see a few high school productions of my Shakespeare adaptations, and if I could just spend the rest of my life like going to high school productions of my work, like it's so beautiful just like watch other people interpret like when an idea you had, because it's connection, right? It's just like hearing what someone else brings to it that you never would have thought. So are you a writer? You're an actor? Do you want to, and writer too, maybe one day?
It's kind of a different question off of that, that's okay, but it's like as an actor, I'm interested in theater for social change and stuff, but sometimes I feel like as an actor I'm not creating. I am creating, but not in the same capacity as writing.
Yeah.
So how to find that balance of like I'm actually contributing if I'm not doing the writing, which is
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I think like seek out writers who are inspiring you in that realm, like writers who you think are tackling the issues you care about and push to be involved in their work. But then also write yourself. I never thought writing would be a part of what I did. And so not that everyone has to be a writer, and not that being an actor only is not an incredibly creative role, and that obviously you are contributing and you're the face and you're the voice of what's happening, but give it a shot, I think.
I will.
Yeah.
I think we have one question here, or one there and then one here.
Hey, Shaina, it's Molly.
Oh my God. This is my childhood bestie.
Oh,
You've always been a big inspiration to me with how hard you work since our friendship goes back so far. I have a two-part question. I wonder what you would tell your 7th grade self, and because that's like how far back I remember you, and what you would tell this whole next generation of school-age kids who are looking at you and want to find their voice and do the kind of stuff that you're doing. What would you?
Yeah. Oh, I love you.
I'm gonna cry.
I feel like I need to meditate on that and write about it, but on impulse. What would I tell my 7th grade self? I think I would be like, it's gonna be okay. Like, it's gonna be okay. I'd give her a big hug, and like, keep at it. Like, or I the first my impulse was to be like, I want to tell her like, chill out. But then I'm like, but no, don't tell her chill out, because she should still, like, I'm just like parenting myself in my own brain. But as far as like the next generation, I mean, you matter, and your ideas and your voices matter, and you have something to say, and you don't have to wait for permission to say it. I think for me, being a writer, I didn't realize that I was craving validation until I was starting to get it. I was like, oh no, it was in me all along. Like, just go and try and do and guess and fail and experiment and just swing big. And yeah, but mostly it's just we really need your voices, and it's time for a change in so many ways. And the thing of like, where are the grown-ups? We are the grown-ups. Like, the younger generation, you are the grown-up. You're gonna show us the way. Clearly, we aren't figuring it out, and we need you. Yeah.
One more thing.
Hi. I feel weird standing up. So I had the joy and pleasure of seeing 12th Night last year, and it was just everything that I wanted a musical to be, and the joy that's in it, and the community aspect of it, and it felt very very powerful and encouraging. And even with the songs that you write, even if they are something like the refugee song, it still feels very action-oriented and hopeful. And I was wondering if you've ever experienced any sort of like burnout or felt yourself getting there, because that's something that I'm concerned about in my own, like, trying to do some social justice work.
Yeah.
And keeping that hope alive. And if you have experienced that, then what do you do to get back to finding the joy and the hope?
Totally. I mean, I think I feel burnout all the time. I felt it today. Like, it's, of course, this stuff is exhausting, both like trying to make art, but then even trying to make a change. I mean, I find myself thinking, what can I really do? Or what, am I gonna go down the White House and hold a sign? Like, and I have done that, but like, what, is it possible? And I feel that burnout of like, well, what actually can I do? But then for me, what gives me hope is history of like, I'm gonna butcher this Rebecca Solnit quote, but if you haven't read Hope in the Dark, like, she is the, is it really in your bag? Oh my God. But it's like amnesia, I'm gonna mess it up, but the main point of it is the way she defines hope really unlocks something for me of like, there's optimism and pessimism, and both are like wrong or like oversimplified, because they both live in certainty of like, if everything's gonna be fine, you're certain about that in this weird way, and everything is gonna go to shit, and like, you're certain about that. But like, hope leaves room for the possibility that we don't know what the future is gonna hold, and we don't know what's gonna happen. And in that space, I'm just paraphrasing Rebecca Solnit, like in that space of uncertainty of we're all innocent to the coming moment of what the future is gonna hold, there is room for that outcome to be a better world. Like that none of us know who would you think you are to know that things are gonna be okay or they're gonna be terrible. So I just trying to think of like, I go back to Hope in the Dark, it's always in my bag. And then looking at the suffragists, I mean, these women 100 years ago, they got an amendment to the Constitution passed. Like, when I think of now, like, trying to get an amendment, I'd be like, well, we're never gonna get that. But they did it. Huh? Oh, the Equal Rights Amendment. That's true. So, well, I mean, sidebar, Alice Paul, what did she do like the day after the 19th Amendment passed? She was like, cool, great, okay, go celebrate, we're gonna do the Equal Rights Amendment now. She authors the Equal Rights Amendment, writes it down, and from 1920 until her death in 1977, she fights for the Equal Rights Amendment, dies before it's ratified. And so I think, part of Alice's journey and part of my journey with the burnout question is like, she starts with the mantra of failure is impossible. Like, that's the suffrage mantra, like, failure is impossible. Okay, fine and well, like, a lot of these mantras in social justice are like, today, this is the last time, or like, enough is enough, the failure is impossible. I'm like, those are great, I understand, or like, this ends today. But of course it's not gonna end today. Of course failure is not only possible, it's inevitable. So like, but how do you let that not be despair? And how can defeat contain the seed of future victory? Like, how can it not? How can the fact that we're never gonna see it in our lifetime, and in our lifetime we might just inch it like teeny tiny, not absolve us of taking action? Okay, and then I'll finish by just getting all Jewy on you, which is like this Talmud quote that helps me in the burnout moments, which is, you are not obligated to complete the work, nor are you free to abandon it. And I really love that, because it's like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna finish it, and it would be arrogant to think I could, or who would I, but like, it does not absolve me like that hopeless feeling does not absolve me of doing whatever tiny little teeny bit I can.
Can you say that again from the Talmud?
Yeah, am I saying it right? It's, you are not obligated to complete the work, nor are you free to abandon it. Oh. It starts on the line before it is like, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. You are not obligated to complete the task, nor are you free to abandon it. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
We must complete the evening. And we'd love to do it with one more song.
Okay,
Do that?
yeah.
Shaina Taub.
I'm gonna play. Oh, it chilled out again.
Piano.
No, I think I did it. I pressed this. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for having me, Robin, and for coming out tonight, you guys. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. There's an old cathedral on 2nd Avenue, tightly pressed between two buildings, the stained glass peeking past bodegas. It is as you are to me, a thing of ancient beauty glowing among the pallor. I walk by it and feel a heavy lightness rising in my shoes, and every stranger is an angel for a second, an ordinary glory singing, oh, luck outrageous, oh, pain courageous, oh, cheerful, fearful life. There's an old piano in Washington Square, a baby grand upon the concrete, concertos for the bums and tourists. It is as you are to me, a thing of ancient beauty, ringing amidst the clamor. I walk by it and feel a heavy lightness rising in my ear, and every stranger is an angel for a second, an ordinary glory singing, oh, luck outrageous, oh, pain courageous, oh, cheerful, fearful life. I descend to the subway as the local arrives, and I hear the West Side Story minor 7 singing in the rails. It is as we are to me, it is as we are to me, a broken searching symphony, a lover's plea for memory, ringing, singing, oh, luck outrageous, oh, pain courageous, oh, agile, fragile soul, oh, luck outrageous, oh, love contagious, oh, cheerful, fearful, oh, cheerful, fearful, oh, cheerful, fearful life.
Shaina Taub. Shaina Taub. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we in? That's it?
Shaina Taub.
Thank you so much.
We will be reprising a lot of this evening on Here and Now in the future, so listen up for that, Shaina, and we will also be cheering you on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh,
Here you go.
thanks. Thank you so much.
Ignored for the past 50 years. We know nothing would happen. And so we need something that would really help poor black people be less poor. And I don't think